News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
KBNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by U&I Furniture. The latest version of the omnibus liquor bill making its way through the legislative session would require some restaurants to build a wall. But its sponsor insists it's not a Zion curtain, the term for the oft-derided partitions that prohibited people from seeing a drink being made. The Utah Legislature got rid of the separate preparation areas in 2017. Senator Jerry Stevenson, a Republican from Layton, told Fox 13 on Tuesday that it is a room. The latest version of Senate Bill 173 would require restaurants that seek a special banquet license to hold private parties to build an opaque wall to block off the area from the rest of the business. Michelle Corigliano, the executive director of the Salt Lake Area Restaurant Association, said that is problematic for some. Senator Stevenson signaled they could keep negotiating the language of the bill. Corigliano said it had a lot of things that restaurateurs do like, including 35 more restaurant licenses and 20 more bar licenses. KBNU News Time is 4:06. KBNU weather for tonight, becoming mostly cloudy and colder. Overnight low tonight, 5 to 10 above. This morning it was 24. Partly cloudy skies on Thursday and a cooler day, upper 20s for the high. Slight chance of snow Thursday night, Friday morning. And then during the day Friday, mostly cloudy, 50% chance of snow, high in the upper 20s. All the way to 36 today. It's 32 right now at KBNU. Cache Valley's most trusted name in hearing aid technology is Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology. Call Dr. Paul Daines at 753-HEAR, H-E-A-R, or visit cachehearing.com.
Most people who buy from U&I Furniture are repeat customers. They come back again and again. So it's important to U&I to sell furniture with value and quality. And U&I loves what they do. They support local manufacturers and American-made brands. U&I's line of Southern Motion specializes in reclining furniture. Best Brand Furniture offers more petite styles. And U&I just added Klosner, who has a wide range of options and takes lots of special orders. It's a family-owned fourth-generation furniture store where value and quality is and always has been offered. That's why it's always a better buy at U&I Furniture, downtown Logan.
KBNU News Time is 4:07. Parents and taxpayers in Utah are raising concerns over a lack of accountability in the state's new voucher program. Under House Bill 215, which is set to become law, an unelected administrator will be given the power to distribute $42 million of taxpayer funds to private institutions without having to answer to the public. While public education has a chain of accountability from teachers to school boards to parents and taxpayers, the program manager in charge of the voucher program is not bound by those same rules. They are only required to submit a financial report to the state board and the legislature with no oversight on what students are learning or their progress. Additionally, voucher students will not be subject to the numerous assessments and tests that public education students must take, but will instead submit a portfolio of their work. Chase Thomas with Alliance for a Better Utah, a taxpayer advocacy group, expressed concern over the lack of reporting and oversight. He said it's problematic when they're not having reporting on a government program on all levels. Speaker of the House, Brad Wilson, admitted that the bill is a work in progress and says lawmakers who wrote the bill will monitor its progress and make changes when necessary. And Utah State University is preparing for the school's 136th commencement since its founding in 1888. And beginning April 20th, the school will hold 7 ceremonies across campuses in the state through the end of the month. Commencement on the USU main campus in Logan will be May 4th. That will include the awarding of honorary degrees, announcement of university-wide faculty awards, and commencement speeches. The local ceremonies are scheduled to begin Thursday, April 20th, and end Saturday, April 29th. Graduating students may choose to attend commencement events at their local campus or any USU campus across the state. You can get a list of the other campuses where commencement will be held and what date at cachevalleydaily.com. KBNU News Time is 4:10. And get more details on these and other stories at cachevalleydaily.com.
Covering Utah State sports like no one else. News Talk KVNU, 102 FM, 610 AM.
Dr. Josh Redd, chiropractic physician, explains how Red River Health and Wellness can help you.
If you have low thyroid and you're taking thyroid medication, the biggest question you should ask yourself is what's causing my low thyroid specifically? If you don't know the answer to that question, it's important to call us. At Red River, we identified triggers that will cause the low thyroid to begin with. One of the most common causes of low thyroid is a disease called Hashimoto's disease. This is an autoimmune disease that is a lot more complicated than just a primary thyroid issue. This is why people will be on thyroid hormone but still feel little to no improvement because nothing's being done to address the bigger, more complicated problem, which is Hashimoto's. If you have low thyroid or you have an autoimmune disease and you're on medication and still don't feel well, call Red River.
Schedule your appointment today at 855-55-RIVER. Red River Health and Wellness with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today.
If your clothes are taking too long to dry, don't run out and buy a new dryer without first checking the vent. Clothes dryer vents can get clogged with lint, and birds can even build a nest in them. If your clothes are taking too long to dry, simply check the outside of your vent, and if you don't feel a swift amount of air, it's probably clogged. Simply clean the vent, and your dryer should work like new. Or, if your vent is too long or too difficult to clean yourself, then give the Duct Hunter a call at 770-4813.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. Maybe you're not sure how you'll make rent, or you lost your job. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light. Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need.
211, how can I help you?
Call or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected. Get help. A message from United Way and the Ad Council.
To protect her home and family in a disaster, Karen was willing to wade through water, mud, and insurance paperwork.
Yeah, I can do this.
You go, Karen! By simply understanding and updating what her insurance covers and doesn't cover now, she'll be better prepared no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hey, that's one nice new bike, Josie.
Yeah, birthday present. Rides really smooth, too. Oh, and I see you finally got a new helmet.
I did. Bought it cheap online.
Love those side wings.
Hey, are you hungry?
Yeah, I'm starving. And need some water, too.
Okay, follow me. We'll turn off here.
I'm right behind you.
Hey, watch the cars. They can be crazy.
Teddy! No! Are you okay? Teddy! Somebody do something!
I called 911. They should be here soon.
Was this young man hit by a car?
Yes, and I'm concerned because his helmet is smashed and cracked open.
It's a brand new helmet.
It's probably a fake.
Please help him.
Fakes cause real harm. You're smart. Buy smart.
Go for real.
Brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council and the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cache Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. Locked out of the station today. Maybe they know something I don't. Thank you, Bill, for rescuing me. We are starting the show.
Yeah, somebody said to me, I said, you're letting Jason in?
I know, a security risk. Yeah, my badge didn't work. We're starting the show with a very special guest, followed by another very special guest. Cache County Executive David Zook will join us for the County Hour at 5 o'clock today. We also have legislative updates. One heck of a debate over a postpartum and maternity leave bill on the House floor today. Audio of that coming up later. Right now, though, starting things off with Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield joining us. The Cache County Clerk and Auditor's office has been busy, to say the least. Audits coming out left and right, and as I've said many times, audits are great for government in general. They most often reveal ways that things can be made more efficient, oversights. It's actually pretty rare that an audit reveals corruption or malfeasance, but oftentimes they're approached that way. But audits are just a part of good government. And joining us right now to talk about the latest audits from the clerk's office, Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield. And Jess, appreciate taking some time for us today. Tell us what you've been up to.
You know what? The work doesn't stop. It's been a whirlwind year. We've accomplished so much. And first off, before I begin, I better just say I'm excited to be back on. Thank you so much, Jason.
Oh, my pleasure.
And Bill, good to be with you guys again. I thought I'd switch it up. We've talked so much about audits. We've concluded 2 formal audits already this year. We're putting the audits out at about 1. I don't know if we released our first one in January or February. Our goal is to put out 1 a month. So we've put out 2 audits and a fraud risk assessment. And so you could say 2.5 so far. And we're on pace to break any record that's ever occurred, and we set that last year.
Wow.
And so every year we're releasing more and more audits. This year I think you had Kate on when I couldn't make it last, and she did an amazing job of explaining real property asset and how what we've been looking at for real property. We have to make sure that if you have tax exemption, that you should be receiving that tax exemption. And then we've also been looking at real property that the county owns and seeing, what property that we don't use as a county should be put up for surplus. And kind of an interesting little thing that we found is that the county actually owns the building that Bear River Health is in, and so that's kind of been a fun audit. It's always an interesting thing when you find they didn't know that they didn't own it, and we didn't know that we did. And so now we've turned our findings over to the legal team, and the legal team is now going through the process with Bear River Health to remedy that. And so that's millions of dollars that we acquired early 2000s, late 90s, and now it's time to return it to its rightful owner, which is Bear River Health. And so anyway, if you want to read about it, I don't want to disclose everything because really I came on today to talk mostly about audits related to elections. But this is by far our biggest audit. We found, if you just add up that's millions of dollars of findings.
Sure. That's amazing because a great example of what I mean when I say audits are about good government, because obviously no one did this intentionally. Could have been a very expensive thing to pop up as a surprise later on, but having found this in an audit, it can be corrected now and save taxpayers' dollars down the road. For listeners out there, if you want to see more of these audits, from a fraud risk assessment audit to real property, an assessment of real property the county owns, an audit done there, the real property assessment audit and an asset audit available. There are also audits of revenue and finance, the Senior Citizens Board, Public Works, all kinds of things. Recorder's office, executive office, all of these have been done starting in 2020 and now here in 2023 with a slew more. And you can download them all at cashcounty.org/clerk and actually look at the audits themselves. Jess, you mentioned election audits, and I can't remember now. The legislature has fried my brain. I can't remember if it was today or yesterday, but a new audit bill had passed one of the chambers. There were some earlier in the session that were talked about but held. Is it confusing as a county clerk to try and keep track of what the law is going to be?
Yeah, that's one of the things. It's without the staff that I have an amazing staff, and all staff members have their specialty, and we assign bills for tracking to various staff members. So we have an elections clerk. The elections clerk is monitoring the progress of different bills related to elections. We have, obviously, tax specialists, and they're monitoring tax laws. And then we also have, obviously, the clerk side of things, and they monitor all those items, as well as the elections, because elections, when you consider what the percentage is, elections is more than 50% of our job nowadays. And so I'll go over some of those today, but it is very time-consuming to keep track of them, to provide voice input into all of them, and to make sure that representatives know how we feel about all of them, and to give them the pros and cons, as well as make sure that the office is running. And so, but we've successfully navigated those waters. It's been a fantastic year, and I can't tell you how good our representatives are in Cache County. Anything we ever need as far as clerks and auditors, if we tell them our opinion, they have always taken it into advisement and are usually willing to work with us to do what needs to be done in the best interest of the county, rather than, any kind of special interest. I just have to put that out there, that we have top-notch reps.
This is it's good news, because there were so many different bills this year, and to have a voice there in the legislature, of course. You also have your colleague, Ryan Cowley of the Utah Elections Office, director of that office. He spent a lot of time testifying in committees this session, and some of the bills are just, making minor changes, like a bill that set some more detailed parameters on when ballot drop boxes can be removed or installed, things like that. Others are much larger, right? The bills that would one bill that I believe has now been held would have completely revamped how primary elections work, right?
Yes. And so let's start from the top of biggest impact this year for election changes. So HB 448 is a very large bill. It goes over election law. It actually is kind of a game changer. It gives the lieutenant governor's office a significant amount of power in enforcement authority and enforcement authority. Utah, I would say, is kind of now, and I always have to be careful. Bill, you always quote me directly. I sound terrible directly quoted. I become too conscious. Utah has become more centralized in power, I would say, in terms of elections and what this bill does. Because now the clerks can be held accountable it's never been like this. The clerks have always been a duly elected official, and we still are. But if we're not fulfilling our duties, then the lieutenant governor's office can take action against us, and they can actually force us to do trainings, and they can force us to complete modules of learning prior to doing things related to elections. So it's a very significant game changer. Do I think it's good? Yes. I think that clerks across the state should all be doing the same thing. But it also changes audits, and it defines audits as studies relating to elections, because there's always been definitional agreements. When you start out talking about audits, you automatically have clerk auditors who start to say, no, we should abide by the standards of auditing which are very specific. And the problem is that we are not finance related in elections. We are election related in elections, and the standards of CPAs don't necessarily make perfect translatable sense. And so what they've done is they said, okay, the state has essentially ordered us through HB 448 to have continuous improvement in audits, which it spells it out there. It says that we need to be examining it on a continuous basis. It says that we can't audit our own work. That's fantastic. You shouldn't be checking your own work because, it's like writing a letter. You will not catch your own spelling mistakes. And that's a simplistic version, obviously. I'm not comparing elections to writing a letter. But you must improve the signature quality forms from the driver's license division. So we get a lot of our signatures from them, and that's what we do our audits for signatures in mail-in balloting, and it spells out they must be better quality. And I have to say, they're actually really good quality, so I'm not exactly sure how they're going to improve that, but it does give them some money to be able to improve the quality. And it might just be that the pens and the pad that you use when you want to sign your driver's license don't necessarily translate that well to the pen and paper that you use to sign your ballot. And so sometimes issues arise from that. So it says,
oh, interesting.
So we want better quality signatures from you so that we can verify and have a higher percentage. It doesn't say that, but I'm giving you between the lines here. This is the clerk between the lines. We should start that segment.
We actually should, because one of the problems with these bills is that all legislation is legalese, but these are also dealing with elections law and citing Utah code here and there, and so they can be tough to sort of translate into normal human speak, right? So no, I appreciate the between the lines take on these bills, because one thing I've noticed, Jess, is that a lot of times, a bill will generate a certain headline in, say, the Salt Lake Tribune or the Deseret News, the Salt Lake City legacy newspapers, and that headline might be a little upsetting or even cause some panic. And then sometimes when you read through the bill, you actually see, oh, this is actually a very minor change. Maybe you still don't agree or like the change, but these are generally small tweak bills, right?
Generally, this one is not a small tweak bill because of how big of a net it casts, and so one, because it gives more power to the lieutenant governor's office, which again I believe is kind of a good thing. As long as you don't take that too far, I think that's a good thing, because and it may just be my bias towards Ryan Cowley, because I think he's fantastic, and I think he's wonderful to work with. And maybe that would change if there was somebody else in there, but for now, I think great. And then it goes through. It talks about how long to keep video footage for elections related to things like the video footage that we keep on ballot drop boxes, and we have to be watched now when we're handling ballots in our ballot centers and when we're processing ballots. And so it also spells out we must have a chain of custody, and chain of custody just means that there must be two people with the ballots at all time. And I think these are wonderful things. There's nothing that I'm in here saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe they did this. I think we have to be cautious on how big of authority changes we make. But other than that, you know what? I think a lot of people are worried. Not a lot at this point, but I think some people want to see stronger audits in elections, and this bill gives that to them.
This is so. Now, have you, have there been any bills that you felt strongly enough about that you actually headed down and offered testimony in support or against, or has it been a year where the elections office, the main office there in Salt Lake, is on top of all of that?
No, I've communicated with the representatives. Johnson we've run a bill every single year, and actually the bill that we were working on was implemented into HB 448, and so we just said, you know what, they're already running this, so let's put that in there.
Okay.
But so I was all prepped and ready to go down there for that bill to testify, and then it was unnecessary because there were so many other parts to it and components of what other people had input into it that I wasn't necessary because there was very strong opinions that it should pass. I went down to the session this year, mostly passive, not to testify for things. It wasn't a big year that I felt very strongly one way or the other. There was only one bill that HB 214, and our UAC has opposed it. It basically is trying to address plurality because in the primary races for federal and state races, if no candidate gets 50%, then they want to have an automatic runoff. Originally, it was going to say, well, if you get 60% at convention, then you don't have to even, go through that. But this changes it so that if you get less than 50%, all candidates, then there's an automatic runoff, and then UACAVA voters, who are the uniform, active military voters and across seas voters, they would receive ranked choice ballots, and then there'd be an automatic runoff, and it would cost an additional $4 million at least up front to the counties. And so UAC opposed that. It actually passed the House and is in the Senate, and I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I have significant concerns about HB 214 and the cost that it brings, and just trying to solve plurality. I think there's other options, and I've always been a fan of approval voting. I know there's RCV, and I've always been a fan of approval voting. I think there's options out there that we could leverage, and I think that's one thing. Ask the clerks. The clerks do know what they're talking about, and we can assist in things related to voting. So if they challenge the clerks and said, hey, come up with an option to solve plurality, I'm pretty sure we could get there within a year. But typically we spend our time trying to negotiate these bills that pop up without us knowing beforehand. So
sure. It's been fascinating to watch, and I do every year. I've learned a lot about elections law, tracking some of these bills. One last one to ask you about, because I'm not sure, the legislature appeared, it was stripped from the bill, and the bill's now just kind of still sitting in a Senate committee. It hasn't, I think, received a Senate floor debate even, but there was a bill that for a period of time would have mandated county clerks provide postage-paid envelopes for mailing your ballot back, and that provision was removed from the bill. Now the bill, in its current form, just it's the one that says, there are certain rules. If you're going to remove a drop box, there has to be a public notice, and there's a process for removing the drop box or changing its location. But the postage-paid portion was removed. That's expensive for counties, right? Was the state? Were they considering any money for that?
You know what? That's one thing that has been difficult is counties are so you have county councils and commissions that are running on, literally they're running on like, I'm not going to raise any costs, right? That's their big thing.
Sure.
And you applaud that and people are very happy, and then the same person might turn around and say, but I want to be able to vote for free, and I want to be able to send in my ballot, and if I don't want to pay a poll tax of what I feel like is a poll tax, and 50 cents to $1. I think it's 57 cents, 63. We pay 57 cents.
Sure.
And I haven't paid postage for anything that I've done in so long. I don't know what it is for a non-bulk rate.
I don't either, actually. Now that you mention it. 33 cents? I can't remember. Anyway.
But we pay 57 cents for one of the big envelopes. And, I understand the arguments on both sides. I really do. And it's been kind of interesting to get pulled into this. But we pay for, typically if something comes to us without a stamp, we'll try to pay for it. But we can't afford that. If everybody were to do that, we would not be able to afford everybody submitting their envelopes without stamps. The cities couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford it. We're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars when you times 63,000 voters by 57 cents. And so I think we just have to use caution. Costs have gone up. We estimated, 2 years ago that our costs were in the $1.95 range for a voter, and now with inflation out of control, it's gone up to about $2.15. Between that, we're trying to estimate out between $2.15 to $2.30 at the high end. And so
wow.
You think it's going up. We are trying to do our best to save the city's money, to save the county money. And so you have all these competing interests. And so that's one of the ways that we've just said, look, we have got to, the way that we're addressing it in Cache County is to focus on drop boxes. And
which makes sense.
Yeah, because in-person voting, when you have all these hybrid voting systems, they all cost money because they all add up. So the best way to do it is keep a consistent rate of about 5% in-person voting, which is our estimate, and then you have the rest go through by mail, and then we can estimate our costs out. If those fluctuate too much, it really can impact our costs and vote time and all the other factors that go into things. So we have got everything down to a calculation so far based on historic data. But if it gets too far out of control one way, and the irony, the crazy thing, people might say, well, then we should go back to in-person voting, and they've calculated that out, and it's even more money than the $2.30. So voting, the costs are going up. The cost of there is a cost to democracy. There's a cost to being a democratic republic, and luckily, we live in a great county where people have said, if that's the cost, then we need to pay it, and we need to have the best elections there are.
Sure. And this is, Jess, I did some very amateur math looking at a map of drop boxes during the election and calculated this out. Stand by this as well, even though it was amateur math. But the average person in Cache Valley on their daily commute through the fall, looking at how much the average commute was, how many miles, the average person passed 3 to 4 drop boxes in their daily commute. I think that's a pretty decent system for balloting. It makes it pretty easy to do. Again, for listeners, that provision was removed from the bill. The bill itself still sets some parameters for moving or removing a drop box, but it's sitting in a Senate committee. Not sure if that will get a Senate floor debate with just, at this point, about 2.25 days left in the session. Tracking election bills with Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield. And Jess, appreciate you letting us take more of your time than I'd asked for today. Always a pleasure to have you join us on the show, and I hope you'll come back soon.
I will. Thank you so much, Jason.
Oh, our pleasure.
And Jess, I'll try to misquote you sometimes so you can say, hey, the press misquoted me.
Just stick some extra words in there.
Yeah, I'm tired of you quoting me directly.
That's right.
How dare you do a great job.
That's all. And also, I hate puppies, the county clerk said.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Thanks very much for your time, Jess. And again, we'll speak again soon.
All right.
Thanks to our listeners as well for tuning in. There you have it, a nice overview of election laws, potential election law changes. Some of these bills are dead. Some are sitting in committees likely not to be heard. Some are scheduled for floor debate. Some have passed. I've linked to all of them on our Facebook page, everything we just discussed with the Cache County Clerk and Auditor, Jess Bradfield. And we'll be back after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:39. The news brought to you by Logan Extermination. Utah Saves Week started Monday. This is a time during the last week of February to help people focus on saving. It is held in conjunction with America Saves Week. Melanie Jukes, USU Extension professor, said for some people, getting started in a savings plan is a real challenge.
Currently, 35% of households are unable to even cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money. And over a third of Americans don't have any money in savings.
She said one way to increase your chances of saving is to automatically have your money direct deposited from your paycheck into a savings account.
It does kind of keep it out of your hand. You don't have to think much about it after you set that up automatically from your direct deposit.
She said those receiving a tax return might use that as another way to jumpstart a savings habit. Dr. Juke said the America Saves Week website can help you set goals and sign up for email and text reminders to keep you on track. She said it's never too late to start saving. A push to mandate members of religious clergy to report child sexual abuse when it's brought to their attention is facing pushback from churches throughout the United States. That's the case in Utah, where 4 separate proposals to narrow the so-called clergy penitent privilege loophole have not received hearings in the State House as lawmakers prepare to adjourn for the year. Religious groups who want to maintain the status quo argue the First Amendment protects the seal of confession and have revisited a years-long lobbying strategy that includes circulating questionable studies about the effects of reforms. Similar proposals are also under debate in states including Vermont, Washington, and Kansas. Utah State women's basketball lost 78-65 to San Jose State last night inside the D. Glenn Smith Spectrum in both teams' final regular season game of the 2022-23 season. Utah State will head to Las Vegas to participate in the Mountain West Tournament. The Aggies, seeded 11th, will take on 6th-seeded Boise State on Sunday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. And a Utah State Aggie men's team is at Las Vegas tonight to take on UNLV, televised game on CBS Sports Network. Al Lewis will be talking about the game with former Aggie great Jalen Moore starting at 8 tonight, and then they'll be back and joined by John Russell after the game later on tonight here on KVNU. It is 4:42.
After that long, cold winter, my green grass blades are dingy yellow and smashed down. I need a little help waking up. Oh, and I need help fighting off those pesky weeds. What can I do?
Don't worry, friend. Logan Extermination helps lawns come out of tough winters. And right now, they have a special on pre-emergent and fertilizer application. It'll keep weeds down and green up your grass for only $55. Call Logan Extermination for details. 752-8450. Based on maximum 5,000 square feet.
KVNU weather tonight becoming mostly cloudy and colder temperatures rolling in, low 5 to 10 above tonight, and then partly cloudy on Thursday, upper 20s. Slight chance of snow after midnight Thursday night, 50% chance of snow on Friday, high in the upper 20s. This morning's low is 24. It's been to 36, and right now it's 33 at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by U&I Furniture. U&I customers come back again and again because they love the quality and value they find. U&I supports local manufacturers and American-made brands. There's always a better buy at U&I, 28 West 1st North, downtown Logan. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is Rochelle Hanks, bringing you the Daily Financial Market Report on behalf of financial advisor Tron Arnold and Edward Jones for Wednesday, March 1st. It was a relatively quiet day with equities swinging in a fairly tight range around the flat line on Wednesday, as strong economic data out of China was outweighed by a lackluster U.S. manufacturing report and a move higher in Treasury rates. The benchmark 10-year yield was up again, topping 4% mark for the first time since last November. Rates have moved markedly higher over the last month, prompting a 2.6% pullback of the S&P in February. We'd note, however, that stocks are still up nearly 3% in 2023, as markets have found some optimism in the prospects of the Fed approaching an end to its rate hike campaign this year. The energy, materials, and industrial sectors, along with small-cap small cap stocks held up better on Wednesday, with leadership in these more cyclical areas suggesting that the underlying tone to the day's move was not particularly sour, driven more by the rise in interest rates than an increased pessimism around the outlook for the economy. Today, U.S. equities closed lower. The Dow closed up 6 points at 32,663. The Nasdaq closed down 76 points at 11,379, and the S&P closed down 19 points at 3,952. And in the bond market, 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 3.99% higher. In stocks of local interest, Thermo Fisher is down $3.24. At Home Depot is down $5.75 to $290.79. Autoliv is up $1.47 to $94.05. Lowe's is down $11.44 to $194.31. Walmart is down $1.98 to $140.15. Nucor is up $3.30 to $170.74. Coca-Cola is down 65 cents to $58.86. Kroger is up 24 cents to $43.38, and General Electric is down 57 cents to $84.14. In commodity markets, the price of crude oil was up 68 cents at $77.73, and the spot price of gold was up $8.10 to $1,844.80. This has been today's Financial Market Report, brought to you on behalf of Edward Jones, member SIPC, and financial advisor Tron Arnold, serving individual investors with personalized attention. Financial advice at 1202 South Highway 89 in Logan. If you would like additional information, please contact any of our 7 Edward Jones offices in Logan, Providence, and Smithfield. Daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
As we live longer, age really is just a number, but retirement is so much more than one. Edward Jones wants to know what you want out of retirement. Working together, you can look at the big picture and make a strategy to help you reach your goals. Because you can't prepare for the unexpected if you don't know where you're headed. Call one of these 7 branch locations in Cache Valley or go to edwardjones.com to get started today. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
The Best of Northern Utah contest is back, and it's time to let your voice be heard.
Best of Northern Utah.
Support your favorite businesses by nominating them now at bestofnorthernutah.com. Have a favorite restaurant? Nominate them. Love where you bought your car or where you get your hair done? Nominate them for Best of Northern Utah, the area's biggest and best celebration of local business. Couldn't live without your gym or plumber? Nominate them all now at bestofnorthernutah.com.
Best of Northern Utah.
Do you know a champion in our community? Nominate them for the KVNU Above and Beyond Salute. Every Friday morning at 8:30, we'll spotlight a firefighter, law enforcement officer, healthcare worker, or other deserving individual and give them a $40 gift card to Firehouse Subs. Submit your nominations for the Above and Beyond Salute by visiting kvnutalk.com. Help us recognize the champions in our communities. The Above and Beyond Salute, sponsored by Firehouse Subs on News Talk KVNU, the voice of Northern Utah.
Back to KVNU's For the People. Thanks again to Cache County Clerk and Auditor Jess Bradfield for stopping by and talking to us about the election bills. There were some questions from listeners regarding one bill that we discussed, a bill that is currently being held by a Senate committee. Well, the Senate committee passed it to the Senate floor, and it hasn't gotten a debate yet. It's Senate Bill 142, Ballot Delivery Amendments. And Senate Bill 142 was the bill that allowed for ballots postmarked on Election Day to be tallied. Right now, statute in Utah is they have to be postmarked the day before. That's a different bill, so ignore that one. The one that got some questions from listeners was regarding the removal of ballot drop boxes and setting some parameters on that, like a public notice and what happens when one's moved and things like that. Listener said, how would they put up a public notice for emptying a drop box? But it's not emptying. The bill, sponsored by Senator Nate Blauen, it says that if a drop box has been in a certain location or is placed in a certain location during one election, and then the county moves it, they just go out and, a lot of them are actually bolted to the cement. But if they go out there and those are cut and it's moved to another side of the parking lot or another parking lot or whatever it might be, the bill says you have to notify the public. You have to put that on public notice websites that the ballot drop box has been moved from its usual location to a new one. You also have to send information to voters each year on where the current locations of drop boxes are. And it's a good bill. It's basically just a big PSA bill with a small price tag. So just to clarify that bill, and again, it's likely not going to pass this session where it hasn't received 3 rounds of Senate voting and made its way to the House yet, with just 2 1/4 days of the session left. I would be surprised if it gets heard at all. But yeah, just to clarify that, it is not a bill that would set rules for pulling the ballots out of a drop box during election counting. It's a bill that mandates certain types of public notice if a drop box is moved or removed entirely, or taken out of commission for one reason or another. One example from not here in Cache Valley, but here in northern Utah, there was a drop box in I believe it was in Rich County. Might have been Summit. I know it was on that side of those mountains, that was actually damaged in an accident, car accident. Loss of control of a vehicle, took out a drop box or rendered a drop box inoperable. It crushed the front of it. The ballots were secure. They were removed, but because of the damage to the curb, the drop box couldn't be placed in that location. So they poured some cement and put it on the other side of the parking lot. But that unfortunately made it not visible, and so people assumed the drop box had just been removed, and so the assumption there is that might have discouraged a lot of people from voting because they didn't know the drop box was still in that parking lot there at the city building, but on the other side of the parking lot. So the bill would say you got to let people know, at least make an attempt via the public notice website, and maybe sending out a mailer with a full map of current locations before the election each year. It's a good idea, but again, not a bill that would create rules for. Listener was concerned that a complex bill creating rules for how you go about taking ballots out of the drop box would slow the counting down so much it'd be weeks before we knew who won. That's not what this bill did. So appreciate the question, and if you have more, just send them in, kvnuftp@gmail.com or 753-5868, and we'll be back right after this.
At Adams Wealth Advisors, they believe that successful wealth management is all about planning. And whether you've done a lot of planning or a little, Adams Wealth Advisors is here to help. If you're transitioning a business, searching for the most up-to-date tax strategies, need help managing investments, or need help with estate planning, Adams Wealth Advisors has your back. Visit adamswealthadvisors.com. That's adamswealthadvisors.com for more information or to schedule an appointment.
Stock up during the Napa Gold Filter Sale. Through March 15th, save up to 60% on all Napa Gold filters. If it has a filter, it's on sale at Napa. You can't beat their price on diesel oil. Truckloads in stock and more on the way. Chevron 15W40, $15.89 a gallon. Napa Premium 15W40 diesel oil, $12.99 a gallon. Valvoline Blue Synthetic, $24.99 a gallon. Get stocked up on filters and oil while prices are at their best. The Napa Gold Filter Sale through March 15 at your locally owned Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts.
Have you pulled your spring sheets out of storage, and do they smell stale and need freshening up? How about your blankets and your quilts? Are things dingy from winter use? Well, go to Mount Logan Laundry. It takes no time at all to freshen everything up with their 55 and 80-pound washers and dryers, and it costs a lot less than the dry cleaners, and free Wi-Fi and drop-off service, too. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
The Cache Valley Chamber of Commerce invites you to attend the annual awards gala on Friday, March 10th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. Enjoy a wonderful evening of fine dining and recognition of Cache Valley's outstanding businesses and individuals, including Citizen of the Year, New Small Business, Event of the Year, Nonprofit, Socially Conscious Business, and Woman of the Year. Don't miss the Cache Chamber Awards Gala Friday, March 10th at the Riverwoods. Reserve your seat at cashchamber.com or call 752-2161.
Most people who buy from UNI Furniture are repeat customers. They come back again and again. So it's important to UNI to sell furniture with value and quality. And UNI loves what they do. They support local manufacturers and American-made brands. UNI's line of Southern Motion specializes in reclining furniture. Best Brand Furniture offers more petite styles. And UNI just added Klosner, who has a wide range of options and takes lots of special orders. It's a family-owned 4th-generation furniture store where value and quality is and always has been offered. That's why it's always a better buy at UNI Furniture, downtown Logan.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. We'll have more of this on Friday's show, but a heck of a debate today on the House floor over a maternity care bill, a bill sponsored by Republican Representative Cheryl Acton, would have just basically requested of the federal government a waiver to add women in certain income status to the existing Medicaid coverage that is paid for 90% by the federal government, 10% by Utah right now under the Affordable Care Act, in situations where they were dealing with needing postpartum care, health services related to maternity in general. Here's a bit from the sponsor, Cheryl Acton, just kind of setting the bill up quickly, and then we'll get to some of this debate.
Each year in the state, about 45,000 mothers give birth to babies. The vast majority of these women do have private health insurance, but about 20% of the moms will be using Medicaid at delivery. After they deliver the infant, the child will have Medicaid coverage for the full 12 months with no risk of dropping off, which is a great...
That is the sponsor setting up the bill, and if you to translate that, basically, women would be able to get Medicaid coverage for postpartum issues that can pop up, even maternity care during the pregnancy and during the birth. And then instead of dropping off automatically and having to renew after a few months, this bill would say, look, you stay on this, but the coverage only applies to maternity-related needs if you are in a certain income bracket, basically low-income families and single mothers, things like that. It's a good idea. It's a good bill, and Acton's sell was basically, look, we're doing this already. We're just excluding this group. Republican lawmaker Norm Thurston surprised her. Swapped her bill out with his own substitution, which is a bad form thing to do. His substitution basically would have kicked all of these people off of this program after 3 months. His justification was the federal government will pick up the tab if you do that, and the state won't have to pay for it. He got a lot of support from some surprising people. Here's a bit of the House floor debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the substitute bill. Some things that have not been talked about are these women, if we expand Medicaid to 12 months for them, will fall off at the 12-month mark and will have to reapply. The navigators do not, in the instance of the sub, actually re-enroll these women. They are simply conducting a review. That does not take 2 hours. And why do many of these women fall off? Well, the data shows that many of them qualify under a plan at their employer, or they qualify on the marketplace and they're moving there because they no longer qualify for Medicaid. And my last point is, we do not know how long the 90-10 match will last, but we do know that it will very likely transition to a 70-30 match, which will increase the cost to the state. So I rise in support of the sub. I think it's good policy. I think it supports the women of Utah, and I would appreciate my colleagues' support. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Elison, Steve Elison, discussion on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor of the substitute motion yield to several questions?
We'll have to cut it short there due to time, but the question Representative Eliasson had, also a Republican, was, what are you talking about, Norm? He basically stood and said, so your substitute says, we have this need in Utah. We're already funding this need. We're excluding some people, but we have an opportunity to not pay our bills and push that off and increase the federal deficit when we can afford it ourselves as a state. To which Representative Thurston basically said, well, yeah, to booze. The debate went on for another 45 minutes, and in the end, the substitute passed the House, but is likely going to see a quick death in the Senate since the bill's been changed since passing there under Senator Wayne Harper's sponsorship. Unfortunate. It means that for this session, at least, these moms are still left out of health care coverage because of some shenanigans in the Utah House today. What are you going to do? Cache County Executive